Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Spright deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck was actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Izzy. And this deck is an amazing going second version of Spright that plays a bunch of board breakers to be able to go in for game. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. And definitely give Izzy some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Spright Blue. And this card is an awesome ability. If this card is special summon, then you get to add a Spright monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Spright Blue, which is a great ability to search out one of your Spright monsters from the deck so you can start swarming the board. Because all of your Spright monsters share a common effect, that if you control a level or rank 2 monster, you can special summon this card from your hand once per turn, which helps you out a lot to just swarm the board so we can go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Spright Jet. Spright Jet is awesome in the deck as a 3-of because if this card is special summon, you get to add a Spright Speller Trap from your deck to your hand. We then play 2 copies of Spright Red. Spright Red is awesome in this deck because this card is a monster negate, helping us just stop our opponent's monster effect so we can go in for game. We then play a single copy of Spright Carrot. Spright Carrot is great because this card is a spell trap negate, helping us out a lot to make sure that we're going to be able to go in for game and not have to worry about back row. We then play a single copy of Spright Pixies. Spright Pixies makes our monsters absolutely massive, so this card is a definite 1-of in the build, because it has the ability of another level, rank, or link 2 monster. You control battles an opponent's monster. Quick effect, you can send this card from hand or field to the graveyard, and then your monster that you control gains attack and defense equal to the opponent's monster's attack until the end of the turn, which is great because it helps you make your monsters absolutely massive to do more damage. We then play 3 copies of Nimble Beaver. Nimble Beaver is the best normal summon in the entire deck, because when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon 1 level 3 or lower Nimble monster from your deck or graveyard, which is great to be able to summon out additional copies of Nimble Beaver to your side of the field, so you can make your link and rank 2 plays, so you can OTK. We then play 2 copies of Nimble Angler. Nimble Angler is insane in this build because we have a bunch of ways to send this card to the graveyard, because if this card is sent from hand or deck to the graveyard, you can special summon up to 2 level 3 or lower Nimble monsters from your deck except another copy of Angler, which is great to be able to summon out additional copies of your Nimble Beaver so that you can go in for a bunch of plays to be able to OTK. We then play 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. Fenrir is awesome in the deck as a 3-up because if you don't control a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. It also spot removes cards off the field and can search additional copies of itself, so you can use this card as an awesome board breaker in the deck. This card is a definite 3-of in the build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Harpy's Feather Duster is really good as a 1-of just to deal with your opponent's back row so we can go in for game. We then buy a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is awesome to be able to send your copy of Nimble Angler from your deck to the graveyard so you can summon out additional copies of your Nimble Beavers. We then play a single copy of Change of Heart. Change of Heart is awesome to be able to take control of an opponent's monster so you can OTK. We then play a single copy of Gamma Burst. Gamma Burst is probably one of the most important cards in the entire deck to help you OTK, because this card makes your monsters absolutely massive. Because all level, rank, and link 2 monsters currently on the field gain 1400 attack and defense points until the end of the turn, making it so your monsters get huge so you can OTK. This card is amazing in the deck and is also searchable off your copy of Jet, making it really easy to get to. We then play a single copy of Spright Smashers. Spright Smashers is great in the deck to basically just spot remove cards off the field. This card is great in the deck as a 1-of, and you really only need a single copy because it is searchable. We then play 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is awesome in the deck to deal with your opponent's attack position monsters or deal with their back row, which is just amazing to be able to do. We then play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talents. Triple Tactics Talents is great because this card has the ability to let you draw 2 cards, take control of an opponent's monster, or look at your opponent's hand, choose a card from it, and shuffle it into the deck, being able to deal with additional hand traps that your opponent might have, draw 2 cards for extenders, or take control of an opponent's monster to help you OTK if they have something massive on the field. We then play 2 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. Thrust is awesome in the deck because it basically turns your 1-of spells into 3-of spells, which is great because this card can actually help you get to cards like Harpy's Feather Duster, Foolish Burial, Change of Heart, Lightning Storm, Triple Tactics Talents, and even your copies of Raigeki that we're playing in the build. This card is definitely a 2-of in the deck, but I feel like 2 is all you need. I did try this card at 3, but it bricked a little bit, so I ended up cutting it back down to 2. We then play 2 copies of Enemy Controller. Enemy Controller helps out a lot in this deck, especially since this is an OTK build, because this card lets you target a face-up monster that your opponent controls and change its battle position. So if your opponent puts a monster in defense position, you can shift it to attack position so they take damage. This card also lets you take control of an opponent's monster by tributing a monster on our side of the field, which helps out a lot so we can get a hold of our opponent's monsters to be able to go in for game. We then play 3 copies of Raigeki. Raigeki is hilarious in this deck as a 3-of because it goes with the entire deck because all of your Spright monsters are made with lightning, and this card is literal lightning. So it helps out a lot in the deck to deal with your opponent's board, and it's a great card to be able to work with the deck. And also it works great with your copies of Lightning Storm and Feather Duster to deal with your opponent's back row and then their monsters, being able to destroy every monster your opponent controls. We then play 3 copies of Spright Starter. Spright Starter is awesome in the deck as a 3-of because this card lets you special summon a Spright monster from your deck, but you lose life points equal to the original attack, and also for the rest turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except rank and level 2 monsters, which is not that big a deal to be able to just lock yourself into level, rank, and link 2 monsters, because it's just going to help you out to get an additional monster on your side of the field and use this card literally as the starter for the deck to summon out your copy of Spright Blue and then get your searches from there. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Super Polymerization is great to be able to break your opponent's board and fuse your opponent's monsters away while giving us a monster on our side of the field so we can deal extra damage to the opponent while breaking their board. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with Gigantic Spright. This card is awesome and our main boss monster of the deck that we can make absolutely gigantic. This card has the ability that for this card's XZ summon, you can also treat a Link 2 monster you control as a level 2 monster for its materials. And the original attack of this card that has a Fusion, Synchro, XZ, or Link monster as a material becomes double its original attack points, boosting this card up to 3,200, which is great to help us OTK. And during your main phase, you can activate this effect to detach a material from this card, and if you do, special summon a level 2 monster from your deck, which is a great ability, and it also locks both players into level, rank, and Link 2 monsters for the rest of the turn, which is not that big of a deal because that's pretty much all we're summoning anyways, but it can stop your opponent from Nibiruing you, which is really nice. We then play a single copy of Cat Shark. Cat Shark is great in this deck as a 1-of because it has the ability to detach a material from this card and then target a rank 4 or lower XZ monster that you control, and its attack and defense become double its original attack and defense until the end of the turn, which works really well with our copy of Gigantic Spright to make it absolutely gigantic to OTK. We then play a single copy of Soul Sweeper. Soul Sweeper is great for spot removing cards off the field. It's just a fantastic 1-of. We then play a single copy of Ninja Shadow Mosquito. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, which is great for this card, and also you don't take battle damage from battles involving this card, and all monsters that your opponent control must attack if able, and when an attack is declared, you can activate one of these effects that you can detach a material from this card, and if you do, place a hallucination counter on one face-up monster that your opponent controls, and the effects of any monster with a hallucination counter are negated. And it also has the ability that you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of one monster with a hallucination counter, which is great because it helps you do additional burn damage to your opponent so that you can win the game. Plus, you really do need a defensive card in the deck, and this card really helps out a lot to just throw this card in defense position and just wait it out until you can OTK. We then play a single copy of AA Zeus. Double A Zeus is great in the deck as a one-of to basically just use this card to break your opponent's board and go in for game. This card is awesome in the deck and a really good one-of. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon is awesome in the deck to basically just use this card because you can easily make it on top of any of your monsters, and it's overall just a fantastic card to be able to make in this build to basically use this card as a really easy boss monster to go into. We then play a single copy of Mud Dragon. Mud Dragon is awesome as a super poly target, and also a copy of Garua, which is a really good super poly target as well to break your opponent's board with super polymerization. We then play a single copy of Underworld Goddess. Underworld Goddess is great in the deck because you can use your opponent's monsters as material to make this card, making this card an awesome monster to be able to summon to your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. This card is very easy to make in the build with your copy of IP Masquerena. You're always going to be making this card during your opponent's turn with the ability of IP Masquerena, and it's an awesome monster that usually your opponent's not going to have an out to, and when you use your copy of IP to make this card, it's going to basically make this card immortal, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy. This card is really good at reviving monsters back from your opponent's graveyard that are dark monsters so we can link climb into other plays. We then play a single copy of Spright Sprint. Spright Sprint is really good to send your copy of Nimble Angler from your deck to the graveyard so you can summon additional copies of Nimble Beaver to your side of the field so you can make your XZ plays and even go in for more link plays. We then play a single copy of SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight is a really good one-of in the build to use as a double interruption, but if you don't have this card, you can use a copy of Nightmare Phoenix instead as another option for this particular position to make it a little bit more budget, but this card is a great card. If you have it, play it. If you don't, play Nightmare Phoenix instead. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena. IP is really good to help us go for a copy of SP Little Knight during the opponent's turn, or a copy of Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax to make it basically immortal, or if our opponent puts like a Towers-like monster on the field, you can make Underworld Goddess to deal with that card, which is just super helpful for this deck. So, that's going to do it for this one, guys. I hope you did enjoy this deck. It's a really fun deck to play. If you guys have never played Spright before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's absolutely crazy how powerful it is to basically break your opponent's board and OTK your opponent with Gamma Burst, making your monsters absolutely massive or gigantic. So, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.